Sarah Levy.
This is so fun that you're
Thank
actually
you.
doing this. This is like such a setup too. I'm so impressed.
Thank you. It's been a long time coming. Do you remember the last time that we were gonna do this?
Oh my God.
A year ago. So last year we started doing this concept. It was a little bit different than the setup that we have now, but I had you scheduled.
Mm-hmm.
And I get a text at midnight the day before we are shooting, and it's Graham, her husband. Graham said, "Hey, Kels, I don't think Sarah's going to be able to make it to the shoot tomorrow for the first hour because she just went into labor." I was like, yeah, I mean,
Wasn't supposed to happen. It was a month early. But I remember thinking, because I think we were supposed to do it on a Friday.
yeah,
And I had James on a Wednesday, and I remember being in the hospital room right before delivering or after, going through the list of people that we needed to tell that things were coming up for. And I just remember in a fog being like, you need to text Kelsey and tell her I can't do Friday. It was like you, my parents, my brother, and Graham's family were like basically the only people that knew I had a baby at that point.
well, I'm very honored.
He completely surprised us, but our plans got diverted for quite some time after that.
I mean, understandable. If there's any reason to cancel a shoot, it's having a human child.
Oh my God. I can't believe it happened.
It happened, and it happened a year ago.
Isn't that
James
so
is
wild?
a year old now.
Yeah.
How's motherhood?
It is incredible. I mean, I had a lot of fears around motherhood, and I know that we've briefly talked about this in the past, but I knew I always wanted to be a mother, but I think I hate change, and that is a big one. And I was nervous about how motherhood would affect my life, and I hate to say that in a selfish way, but it was more a fear of like, how does it affect my job?
Yeah.
What does that mean? Graham was in school. How do we make that work? And it just felt like nothing was quite in place yet. And I was really nervous when I found out I was pregnant. What the next, what the future looked like. And I think I built up all of these worst case scenarios in my mind, because you hear from everybody, like the first year of the baby's life is the worst, and you get no sleep, and it's this and it's that, and you're like, oh my God, like, why do people do this then if it's so bad? And not even bad, because everyone's like, it's amazing,
Right?
But it's so
But
hard.
laundry list,
Yes. And so I think because I had all of these things built up in my head, I was anticipating like the absolute worst and such a tough baby and crying all the time, and James just was such a good baby. And we were so lucky to have a night nurse help us for the first couple weeks, which was truly a game changer. And I think that honestly set up kind of what parenthood looked like for us in that first year, because I was so much more relaxed than I knew I would have been had we not had our night nurse.
Right.
And I don't have siblings with kids. I didn't really have any friends with kids, especially babies. I knew nothing about babies. I had never changed a diaper. I had like zero clue. Mm-hmm. I do not know how people enter into parenthood like that without any help. And like our parents, sure, they went through it, but
Right.
however many years ago, 30 plus years ago or whatever. So they don't really remember stuff. And so much has changed since then. It's all that to say, I'm yes, it was, a tiring year, but in honestly the best way possible. And it kind of sparked this need for advocacy for like childcare in the early days, in the newborn phase, because it feels like it's a basic right to have somebody like that come in and walk new mothers and fathers through that stage.
Yeah. So you told me about the night nurse, and I don't have kids right now, and so I had no idea that was a thing. Ella's going to come in.
We love it.
Ella.
We love it.
For audio listeners, we have a little weenie in the room.
You heard it.
Yeah, her little nails. But yeah, I mean, you talked about this night nurse and how like life-changing that was.
Yeah.
Because isn't it interesting that we go to school, we do all these things to learn all these skills, and then all of a sudden it's like you get pregnant, you have a baby, I'm sure they teach you things at the hospital, but then all of a sudden you go home and it's like
Barely.
you're on your own to take care of this human being, and that's got to be scary and intimidating, and you're tired, and your body just went through something traumatic.
Totally. It's like your whole world completely turns upside down in a matter of seconds. Like once the baby arrives, and then you're just left to look after a baby. And nurses are great, and they can only teach you so much in that, day. We happened to be in the hospital for an extra day just because James was early, so they wanted to make sure all of his levels were whatever. But it was still like kind of a blessing because we were able to spend an extra full day in the hospital learning him and having the help to do it before we went home. But it's it was like truly game changing, and America and the healthcare system in America is still such a question mark to me. I mean, coming from Canada, where we don't really have to think about healthcare in that sense and what it costs. And I still kind of can't believe sometimes what the healthcare system in America is.
Yes.
It's crazy. And the idea that if you can't necessarily afford it, what that means for you. I mean, anyway, that's a whole other conversation, but
it is so interesting because like Dennis and I have our own business. And so we have to, we've done it where our business provided healthcare for us and other people. We've done it where we just bought it privately, and it's just hard to know how to navigate it because it is so expensive, but it's so necessary, right? Like we need it.
Yeah.
We need it, but it's just, it'd be nice if we didn't have to think about it.
Honestly. And we've all been, I mean, maybe I'm speaking for myself, but like in a place where you can't afford to pay an extra $300 a month on health insurance. I was like, can I just put this in a bank and then you actually use it when I need to, as opposed to like hitting some, it's just, anyway, fortunate to be able to, have healthcare for right now.
Yes.
And, but yeah, it's all that to say, motherhood it's been amazing. We love him so much.
James is awesome. It's so cool. And he's just grown up so much. And it's been so cool to see Graham as a dad and all of that. Yeah, it's just amazing.
It really, we kind of look at each other sometimes and think like, we're parents. Like, what? What is that even? Like, this is so weird that we have this baby and he has a name even today.
Yeah.
Like, we named this baby and now that will be his name forever. We were kind of joking about like James Outerbridge, come to the principal's office.
Isn't that cool though to think like I'm sure he already is expressing himself more and
Yeah.
has thoughts and feelings and all the things. And just seeing my niece and 2 nephews going through these different phases. My youngest nephew is just a little bit older than James.
Right.
And
Right.
now he is starting to talk and sing and all these things. It's just cool to see how they grow up and change and become their own little people.
Yeah. Yeah. The development is real. Everyone always says that development, and then you watch it and you see their brain think. And I mean, especially in this day and age when the phones are such a prevalent thing, he's like on the phone and we don't let him have it. But so I'll try not to use it around him, or he'll see me hold it and then like slip, and he will literally, I put it under the pillow in our bed. He came in the morning, Graham brought him in, and I put it under the bed, and he literally like lifted the pillow up and shoved his hand under the pillow. I'm like, how did you know to do that? I mean, it's just, you're
smart.
1 year old.
Yeah.
You've been alive for a year.
1 year. 1 year of life experience.
It's so crazy.
He's
and
already
yet,
lifting up those pillows.
lifting out the pillows, trying to get that phone. It's not going to happen. It's not going to happen.
Mom's laying down the law.
Yeah. For as
my
long as I
gosh.
can.
Man, so we've known each other about 3-ish years now.
That feels
I
like
think so.
longer.
Maybe.
But I think that's just because I would work out with you unbeknownst to you. I knew you way longer than you knew me. So
I knew who you were. You just didn't know I knew who you were.
I was working out with you for like a solid year before I got the courage to message you.
Oh my gosh. So the story is you did the program on Open Fit.
Yes.
With Shay and Steph.
Yes.
And I was the trainer.
Yes.
And you dominated it.
Oh my God, I loved it so much. It's still one of my favorite programs.
I hope it comes back.
Who do we call?
We got to call the people up top.
Honestly. It's just, but this is why I love your workouts in general, which is why I love your app. But that's where I first found it anyway. So yeah, it was, And then I just hadn't, it was during COVID.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right.
Yep.
Or was it before?
No, it wasn't. It wasn't before, because that we filmed that program in January 2021.
Oh, okay. So that must have been after.
Yeah.
It had to have been after. And I obviously, and I did the program, and then I was just like, who is this trainer? Like, I love her energy. I just like, the workouts are great, but I'm excited to do them. I find a lot of times with workouts that are high intensity, which I feel like a lot of that 30 days, my heart rate was up. I dread doing sometimes because it just requires a lot of energy.
For sure.
But you just made it so fun. So I slid into her DMs. I was like, I won't cross my fingers and hope that she lives somewhere near here, or that we could do it over Zoom or whatever. So I messaged you, and I was like, do you live in LA?
And I was like, yes.
And then we found out we were literally up the street.
Yes.
Practically on the same street from each other. So
which is so weird to think about, like just how small the world is like that. I mean, what are the chances?
What are the chances of like even Los Angeles? The fact that we were literally on the same street. It was wild.
Because someone can be a couple miles away and it's like, yep, see you in an hour and a half.
Yeah.
It just takes so long to get anywhere.
Yeah.
But I can walk to your place, and I have.
I know. We've been so fortunate, and it's been such a. That's the thing I love about LA, because neither of us are from LA,
right?
And I find that I know a handful of people that are from LA,
right?
Everyone else is here for something, and therefore I feel like is constantly looking or is open to meeting new people and making connections. And some of my favorite people in the world I've just messaged on Instagram and like, or on Facebook when Facebook was a thing or whatever, just being like, hey, is that, and it's like, I guess it's like Hinge or something, but for friends.
And I've done that so many times too. And I kind of have no shame around it. Cause like people, I've had plenty of people not message me back, but it's like,
Yeah.
you just never know who could be a friend, who could be a colleague.
Yeah.
Like it's great. I love meeting people. So,
Me too.
yeah.
Me too. And especially when I first got to LA, and I don't know how you guys felt, but I was like, it's lonely. I mean, it's
Yeah.
a big city, and I even had friends here, and I still felt like I was lonely. And
For sure.
so constantly reaching out and to new people and, you know, making plans and stuff. It was just like, now when I look back at the group of friends that I have, it's from all different places and all different like acting studios and restaurants and jobs and through friends. It's like it's such a wider group than I would have ever had staying in, you know, Toronto, where I'm from, although I love it so much in Toronto. And
course.
I love all my friends there, but like, it's not the same. I think LA
Totally.
is so different than any other place for that.
Yeah. It's just, you get a little bit of everything, and people are driven, and not that they aren't other places, but it's just like a different type of experience because people come here for, you know, acting or whatever it is. And
Yeah.
so it's cool to see that just kind of difference
Yeah.
in a lot of ways.
Yeah, totally.
Okay. So we met through the internet, and then we started training together.
Yes.
And then we created a workout program
We
together.
did.
That was so much fun.
It was one of my like life goals was to create a workout program, especially after watching your program that I followed. I was like, this is the dream. Like, this is so much fun. Because I love working out with people. So when I can't, most of the time I am working out by myself at home just because, you know, time wise.
Right.
It was so much fun.
You crushed it in every single way. Like, we did 12 workouts.
Yeah.
Called Start Strong with Sarah Levy. It's on our HIITBURN app, so we can check it out.
Go download it. It's great. It honestly is. It's I still go back. It's and do them because when I was postpartum doing it and still getting back up to, you know, where and I'm still not even there, but like to where I felt like I was physically pre-pregnancy even. So there are a ton of modifications that I'm doing. So I feel like, and my friends ask me this all the time, especially the ones that don't work out, like, is it hard? Is it hard? And that's always, and like, yes, it's hard, but like stuff's hard. You know what I mean? Like, it's not going to be easy.
Yeah.
So,
And that's what's interesting is, any sort of fitness is going to be hard, but it's also what you put into it. Right? Like, especially with like the workouts that we did, like
that's very
you
true.
could cruise through it if you wanted to.
You could.
But one of the things, I appreciate many things about you, but one of the things, especially like in the workouts that we've done together, like you always work so hard and you are super athletic. And so it's fun to work out with you because you're always like, no, I can do it. So like, yes, you can.
It's the challenge.
Yeah.
I love trying to meet the challenge. And that was one of the most frustrating aspects of the postpartum journey is because I knew I had to take my time physically, but it's like your brain and your body competing against each other because I was wanting to push myself and knew that was, I mean, there's a threshold, I guess,
Right.
but like can't push yourself too much because I was still healing, but like my instinct was to do it. So you were like, no, you're going to be on your knees for this one.
Well, isn't that an interesting thing? Like, and everyone goes through this in a, one way or another, whether it's through childbirth or injury or whatever it is.
Mm-hmm.
Like if you are used to pushing yourself and you have, that kind of mentality, it's hard when you mentally know what your body has been capable of. It's hard to hold back.
Yeah, it is.
But it's not a bad thing too. It's just, especially postpartum, like understanding, okay, this is a period of time and we build back up to it. And you did a great job.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Thanks. It was like the first, I had never, knock on wood, I hadn't had any injury.
Right.
So that was the first time that I was actually forced to really take some time off and then start really slowly.
Right.
And it's hard when you're wanting to like get back in. But it's such a fun program.
It was so much fun.
Yeah.
It was so much
We
fun.
need to do it 2.0.
I know. We do. Oh my gosh. Sarah, you've done so many cool things. Like when I saw your message in the DMs, it's like, holy crap. That's Sarah Levy. So you mean Sarah Levy? You've just done so many cool things, and you are just an awesome person. Like from the moment we met in person, I was like, she's a good one.
I agreed. Same.
And okay, so you've done so many different things. You are an actor, and you've been an actor for a while. Mm-hmm. How many years have you been acting, would you say? God. Like, when did you start? Were you like acting out of the womb, or were you like later on?
No, I think inevitably when you have a parent in any industry,
Sure,
you gravitate towards what they do.
Yeah.
I think because you're surrounded by it, and it's what's talked about around the dinner table. And it's not like he was in accounting. My dad was an actor, and that was cool. Like, and not because of any fame part, because that part came in my mind, like that registered way later.
sure.
It was more just like, wait, so I get to step onto this set, and it's make believe. Like it's completely creative, and it's like through lights and set and tone and everything, you're just walking into a completely alternate reality, like over a threshold. Like you walk through a door and all of a sudden you're in a different world. And I just always remember like I would die to go to work with him. That was like my ultimate. I just loved going to work with him because I just loved the world of film and television making.
Were there any specific like shows or movies that you remember?
Oh my gosh. Bits of a ton of things.
Yes.
Oh gosh. I remember there was, bits of a ton of things.
Yeah.
And it just feels like fragments of all different kinds of, movies and stuff. But I remember there was he was shooting this movie called Down to Earth. It was with Chris Rock, and it was a remake of Heaven Can Wait. And they were shooting it in Toronto, which is where I grew up. So I went to set one day, and they had transformed this, I don't know what it was. I think it was a restaurant or something at the time, into heaven. Like what this movie's version of heaven was, which was kind of like a very chic supper club, but like it was all blue. Like it was amazing, and it was huge, and it was just like the amount of detail. I was always blown away by just the detail that goes into TV and movie making, down to the flowers, the microphone, the trees, the things. Like it's everyone working together all at once to create one world. And I don't know. I just always felt drawn to that. And my brother did too, obviously, because he's done a few great things. He's also done a couple things that no one would have probably heard of. But yeah, but all that to be said, I think we both knew from a very young age that acting was something we always wanted to do. My parents were they were supportive of that in extracurriculars, but not of it as a job as a child or a teenager. They were kind of hoping that we would go to school, see the world, and then decide from there. And inevitably we, wound up right back at the start. So they put in a solid effort to divert us from this. But I think you you just kind of get like they say, I guess you get the bug, and then it's hard to think about doing anything else.
For sure.
So,
I mean, when you're surrounded by that growing up,
yeah,
that's incredibly inspiring. And how cool is that to be on the set of Heaven?
Yeah, it's just
that's
like,
just amazing.
it was amazing. And what was so cool too, especially when we were younger, is everyone would kind of bring us in. The different departments would let us do different things. I remember doing like flashing lights for one scene one time on a movie that my dad was in. I went to set with him, and it was like a press conference. It was like a sports press conference,
Oh my gosh.
like all the flashing cameras and stuff. So they let me hold a thing, like just taking part and getting to explore all sides of it. It was the coolest. Take your kid to work days. You know, it was really. I felt very lucky considering that's what we ended up going into, that I had some like previous knowledge going into it.
Well, that helps. I mean, it's navigating any industry is challenging, but especially when, like in acting, there are so many components, so many people in the room, and it can be overwhelming. So to have some experience of understanding, okay, here's the lay of the land, here's this person's role, that person's role. Yeah. I'm sure that plays into it.
Totally. Yeah.
So you studied acting in university.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
And were you acting before that as well?
Like in camp, like summer camps.
Yeah. Do you remember your first role ever?
Oh my
Or like
gosh.
your first memorable one? What was your first memorable one?
I was in one of the leads in our grade 6 or 6th grade for all the Americans.
Do you see what I did with university there? Because I'm like,
yes, I didn't even catch that.
I'm trying to play into your Canadian.
It's so true.
Honor your Canadian.
I appreciate it. My 6th grade production of this show called Food for Thought, which was a musical where it was basically the good foods and the bad foods, like junk foods and healthy foods against each other. And I played the leader of the healthy foods.
Who's the leader?
It was like a random made up thing.
Was it like an apple? Is that what you mean?
No, that would make sense.
You played an apple or a banana?
That would make sense, but this made zero sense. Okay. My name was Nutritootie, and I could dress myself, and I decided to dress myself in a very oversized t-shirt that came down to pretty much my knees that I tie-dyed myself. With glitter all over it, and the Spice Girls were in at the time. So just like it was a mess.
Sidebar: which Spice Girl was your favorite?
Emma.
Okay, I was a posh girl.
Oh my gosh! Yeah. Oh my gosh! I have a story for you.
Okay, tell me.
I was a Spice Girls fanatic. Ugh. Like live, breathe, eat, sleep, die Spice Girls. Oh my God! And in the middle of our seasons of shooting Schitt's Creek, it must have been 2018 or 2019. It was towards the end. And Victoria Beckham, we got this like call because she was doing a fashion show, like luncheon thing in Toronto.
Oh my gosh.
And invited the girls to go, and Annie didn't go. I don't know where she was, but I went with Jen Robertson, and she sat us at her table. She came up to us, and I almost died.
I mean, understandable.
Melted to the ground. You know when you just have all these flashbacks of all the like. It was such an overwhelming feeling because I was so obsessed with someone and something, and then all of a sudden, like 20 years later, you're face to face with somebody you literally never ever thought you'd be in the same room with, let alone talk to.
It almost, sometimes there's like those people where it's like they're on such a high pedestal, it's like they don't even feel real.
That was it. It's like they don't even feel real. Yeah. They're like, oh my gosh, that was one of the coolest moments of my entire life.
You sat at a table with posh.
I don't even know what I blacked out. Like, I don't even know what
do
the
you
thing was.
wear to a luncheon?
She dressed us.
Oh, what a dream. What were you wearing?
I was wearing a black Victoria Beckham, like, long sleeve. It was like, I'm not describing this right. Sorry, Victoria Beckham. It's like,
I don't think she's
like, kind
gonna
of like
mind.
mesh sleeves. It's a beautiful dress, and like cut out that kind of goes mid calf, fitted. It's kind of hard to describe, but it was just like, oh, it was so beautiful. And
Classy.
actually, I ended up wearing one of the dresses that I saw in that show to my rehearsal dinner for my wedding, because I saw it walking by and I was like, that is the dress.
That's the one. Oh my gosh.
And 4 years later or something, I bought it. I found it online on sale.
And on sale. Honestly, I just
had to wait 4 years.
Yeah.
and then I got it.
But hey, we're here for
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, that's amazing. So, okay, so you were Fruity Patootie in the play, and then
we were there.
and
Yes.
then then you graduated, and then when did you start in Schitt's Creek?
So I moved out to LA after I graduated university, which I moved the summer after I graduated, and Schitt's Creek didn't start until, maybe 5 years later.
Wow.
So I was like out hustling in LA, as every other actor in LA is doing, like
It's tough.
working at the restaurants,
Yeah.
cutting your shifts covered, like trying to get into rooms, having horrible auditions, I guess. I don't know what the word I was looking for. Experiences, like
Yes.
certain casting directors that are just the absolute worst. And not to say that every casting director is the absolute worst. Obviously, there are
but some
really
people are
great
probably
ones.
meaner than they need to be.
Yeah, that's it. That's it. And I think, especially with casting, like your job is to kind of part of what a casting director's job is to make the room a warm room and a welcome room, so the actor that you're inviting in feels as comfortable as possible.
Right.
And some are fantastic at it, and some are great. And it's tough too when you first get here and you're going into rooms. Like, I didn't have experience auditioning, and I think a lot of people have these preconceived notions, especially with both me and my brother, that things were very easy. The transition into our own acting careers were very easy, and it was not the case.
Right.
I wouldn't say that. We're obviously somewhere in the middle. Like, does it help that, someone says, "Oh, it's so and so's kid" or whatever, and the casting director will be like, "Sure," but
you still have to do the work. Like, you have to be good at your job.
You have to be good at your job.
You have to be great, because there are a million other people going out for these same exact roles.
Yeah. You have to be good, and I think for both of us, but I'll speak for myself, that you have that in the back of your mind. Like, they're overly judging me because, or they're expecting me to do something because, or expecting me to be hilarious because, or any of those things. So, it was pounding the pavement. It was like working in a lot of restaurants for a lot of years. And Schitt's Creek came along, and I was still working in restaurants when I first started on Schitt's Creek for the first couple years.
That's just the nature of acting, right? Unless if you're like a series regular or something where you're on it all the time.
Yeah.
Because what's the most desirable position? Obviously, it like depends on the person, but is there like a certain type of role? I've heard that certain people like, okay, I want to be on a TV show that we know is going to be X amount of seasons because it's regular hours, or what's your experience with that?
I mean, obviously being a series regular is the goal, in a lot of ways, because you're a regular. You can't be guaranteed how many seasons it'll go, but you hope that it'll go forever.
Right.
And like my dream job has always been a sitcom or a multicam or something like that, because you kind of get the best of both worlds of being in theater and TV at once.
Right.
You have an audience, but you can mess up your lines and start over again. And in my couple experiences doing that, you just hope that like this is the one. You hope that like this pilot is going to be the next thing, and it's going to go for 10 years. You'll never have to worry about money again. And like your days are 9 to 5 and you shoot like it's schedule wise. I think it's, in my opinion, the best. But yeah, series regular, like you're guaranteed something.
Yeah, which makes sense.
Yeah, even if it's, one season.
What about movies? Would you want to do that?
I would love to do movies. And I don't know when the last time I did a movie was. I feel like there was movies and TV, and now there are no movie stars, and all the movie stars are in TV.
It's so
you know what I mean?
Is that because of streaming?
I think it did help. I think streaming did help because they started making content that networks weren't producing, and it was alluring to the movie stars. And then it made it harder for people like regular actors to work, because it was like you were already being bumped down from all of these names that were coming in,
right,
and taking the parts that they wouldn't have necessarily taken a couple years earlier,
right,
because they only did movies or whatever
right.
it was. So it made things a little bit more difficult.
Interesting.
But like movies are there's a beginning and an end to movies. That's the fun part too. So it's like you start and finish the book, and it's just
I never
done.
thought about it like that. That makes sense.
Yeah.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
Do you have a certain character that's like your ideal? Maybe it's a couple personality traits. Like, I'd like to play this type of person. Or is there like a current existing character that you're like, that is who I would love to play?
Oh my gosh, that's such an interesting question. Now I'm trying to I don't know how much I can say about this, but
we can cut it out if we need to.
No, well, I was going to say I always wanted to play like a villain type.
Oh my gosh. I would love to see you play a villain.
Or like a mean girl.
Yes.
And in the show that I'm doing right now, Surreal Estate, it's been one of our directors, Melanie Scrofano, who was on Winona Earp. If anyone's a sci-fi fan out there, she's an amazing actress and also a wonderful director. And she had asked me this question when we were shooting the second season of Surreal Estate, like, what has been the part or if there is a part, or have you played a part that's like really satisfied all of the things that you've wanted to do as an actor? And as I was answering, I realized the part that I was playing, like the part that I was currently shooting, was actually the closest thing that's given me all of the range, because there's comedy, there's drama, there's sci-fi.
As
there's
Susan Ireland?
Yeah. Okay. Like it's been a really interesting experience because we do a lot of CGI. There's a lot of kind of horror adjacent, but there's a lot of heart. There's a lot of everything really in there. And I think all of my castmates would kind of agree in that sense that it actually is really creatively fulfilling because you get to hit all of the markers along the way and like light things on fire and move things and do the Marvel stuff.
Yes.
That, you know, most people will never get a chance to do because
sure.
like it's such a Marvel's like, you know, trying getting into that feels near impossible. So it's like, it's the closest thing that touches pretty much everything. It's been a really fulfilling job in that sense. So I think that's sort of something right now.
I love that.
Yeah.
One question that I have about Surreal Estate, and this has nothing to do with your acting. Is it scary to be on a horror set? My threshold for scary things is like down here.
No,
It's so
I know.
small.
I know. I'm the same. I don't do horror movies.
Yeah.
Like the idea of horror movies is fun for me. The concept of sitting down on Halloween and watching a horror movie. And then when I'm actually sitting down and watching it, I'm thinking like this was a terrible mistake because I hate this.
Yes,
like,
I know. I always regret
hate
it. I always think I can do it, and then I realize 2 minutes in, I can't.
I can't do
I
it
can't.
because I'm like this, closing my eyes and
Yes.
plugging my
Yep.
ears the
Looking through my
entire time.
fingers.
Yeah.
Yep.
But the great thing about Surreal Estate is that it's again, it's like horror adjacent. So
Yeah.
it's actually very watchable.
Yes.
Considering, you know, the horror genre is it's like too scary for me.
Yeah.
It's more it's surprised me. It's been really fun, but there have been a few things, and especially like in the first season, in the last few episodes, we're kind of going through this like basement cave that's connecting two houses from across the way, and we're going through, and they're like rocks are, you know, falling in on us, and people are popping out, and one of the guys, you know, had to dress up all and like get all the prosthetics and stuff
Oh
to
my
look like
gosh.
a dead soldier, and they
Nope.
put him up on that right.
Oh my gosh.
They put him up on the like little rafter where we were, and the shot was us coming around the corner, me leading, and he pops down, like swings down so that we're face to face, like his face is right here. And every time it was terrifying. It was like that moment, and you know it's coming.
Yes, of course.
And still, it's equally as terrifying every single time, and that was rare. Like normally, it was a little more fun than that. That was like it's like very real every time.
How many times did you have to shoot it?
Oh my gosh, not as many as you'd think.
But would you have to go back and run it back like 10 times?
Maybe like 5.
That's 5 too many.
Maybe 5. And then it was like the scream. I was like, well, now I'm gonna lose my voice.
Oh my gosh.
It's like,
So he swung down, and you have to scream.
you have to scream. It was like a scream, and then drop the flashlight because we were going through with flashlights and stuff, and like
And then is it like that you cut there, or do you have to say things and be coherent after that?
No, we would like, it was like me dropping, and then we'd all run past, and that was it. So luckily it was like a very short chunk, but it was, yeah, that was like the one thing that I will always remember is like this horrifying. And Art Sky, our makeup artist, like she's amazing with prosthetics as
Yeah,
well. So
that's
she
so
did such
cool.
a good job at, like, she does such a great job at making these, you know, monsters and haunted people come out every episode. It's amazing.
That's so amazing.
It's so fun.
It's
so fun.
It'd be so fun to watch and see all of that happen and come together. Then see
Yeah.
like post editing.
Yeah.
All of the things that are added.
That's what's so fun about watching it too, especially for us. Like we just have such a good time doing it, and I love our cast so much. And I wish we were all in the same place so that we could actually like get together and watch it together, because so much comes alive.
Yeah.
You know, with music and sound and, you know, editing and all of that. It's such a fun watch.
Do you often watch the shows back that you're in? Because I've talked to people and I've heard both ways.
I know most of the time I do.
Yeah. I think I would too.
think
I
it's
do
just
with
like,
my
I have
fitness
to
stuff.
see it.
Yeah.
And that way, and you're like, if that's terrible, then at least I'm not like, yeah, I did this thing. At least I know, like, don't mention this.
Yes.
But most of the time, you just got to swap. Like, it is what it is. If
For
it's
sure.
out there, it's out there. And, like, you don't have control over which take they use anyway. So,
That would be so interesting. Not having control over that.
yeah. Because sometimes when you're doing it too, you're like, I feel it. Like, that was the take.
Yeah.
I think it's going to be
Interesting.
the take they use. And you're watching, you're like, okay.
Shoot.
That wasn't what I was thinking.
But it's fine.
There it
The
is.
ratings are great.
There
so,
it is.
Oh, hi, Ella. So when you're preparing for a role, because Susan Ireland on Surreal Estate is very different than Twyla, right?
Very, yes.
So look at Ella's tail right now. She's like sitting on my lap, just
Sweet
going a mile a minute. How do you prepare to play roles that are so different? Like, do you infuse your own personality into these roles, or how do you get prepared to be someone else?
I kind of look at the backstory. If you have some backstory on that character, it's really helpful just to gather information on who they are, where they came from. Sometimes you get it, sometimes you don't. So you can kind of create that yourself. And what this person maybe sounds like, how she talks or how she walks, or whether there are any, mannerisms or isms at all that they have. But I feel like, what's interesting with the character like Twyla was, I remember being so nervous my first day on set shooting that show in the first season. And my first scene was, I think, the only scene that's in that first episode, which is them sitting at the diner and I'm coming up and introducing myself and talking about my uncle.
I just
who's
watched
in
it.
prison.
Yes.
I was so nervous doing that I think it almost worked to my advantage, because this like green vulnerability came out in this character that if I were to get that part now, I think it would be a bit of a different character, just based on the experience that I have, and obviously age difference and everything. But like, I remember just kind of stumbling into that character and that mindset, as much as I had prepared and like, gotten into, and my brother and my dad created this huge, Bible, what they called like basically a book that gives backstory on everyone's characters and who they are and what their middle name is and where they came from. And
That's so cool.
yeah, it's amazing. And it's so helpful for the actors. And I was lucky, especially with Twyla, where her family history was like consistently being revealed, like episode through episode throughout the series.
Right.
So you learn so much more about her family history than I think you pretty much do with anybody else in the series, just based on like the sad
Right.
life that she had.
Twyla.
But it's really just just doing some like due diligence, seeing what their job, like at the real estate, area I knew nothing about. So I had to like learn a little bit about that, or talk to my friends who are real estate agents, and like, just so that I felt like when words were coming out of my mouth, they were believable, that I knew what I was talking about when I had no idea.
That probably is really helpful to dig into some of that, because realtors would be able to watch it and be like, oh, that's not really how it is. And to be able to even just pull it off with confidence takes it to the next level.
Yeah, totally.
So when you mentioned auditioning a couple times.
Yes.
Is that something that you like doing or you don't like doing?
I hate it.
Okay. Is that like the worst part of
so
your job?
much. For me, yes.
Okay.
I hate it more than most things in all of life.
Why?
I hated it a lot more when I had to go in the room because I would get really nervous, and I found that I just had too many experiences where I felt like I was set up for failure in the room with either who I was reading with, how they were reading, all of these things. Like, the audition process is not what the process is on set. And I remember actually having a conversation with Catherine O'Hara about this because she was also telling me how much she hated auditioning.
Really?
And she said, when you go into an audition room, you are expected to do it pretty much right on a specific way, get all the way through. The environment is nothing like it is on set. The acting is nothing like it is on set. You have a bad read. I mean, it's not realistic.
Right.
So yes, you can get a sense of, what that character is. That's the only way they can cast it. But like, it's just not, in my experience, and she found in her experience too, it's just not the same thing. And you can be a great auditioner and get on set and be terrible on set, and vice versa.
It's almost like it's a completely different skill than
It
the
is.
acting
It's
itself.
like writing SATs or something.
Yeah,
It's like, it doesn't
interesting.
necessarily mean you're super smart or that it's what you've studied for the SATs are going to take you places later on. It just means you're good at studying for the SATs.
Right.
And then,
Because most auditions, is it just you and maybe some other reader if there's dialogue?
yes.
But it's not like someone else who could actually potentially be playing that other character.
pretty much, unless you're getting to a place where you're doing a chemistry read or you're
Gotcha.
doing a test where they've brought somebody else who's maybe already been cast in and you're reading with them to see, how you work together. So generally, no. Generally,
Yeah.
it's either like the casting director will have a reader and hopefully they're good.
Yeah. How do you?
Hopefully they're actors.
Yeah, because that I'm sure that makes a difference.
Huge difference. But I don't know. And my nerves generally, I get very nervous in general with lots of things. So,
So how do you work through that, especially in the case of auditions?
well, luckily self-tapes came along.
Yes.
And that was incredibly helpful
For
because
people who aren't sure what that is.
yes. So for people who aren't sure what self-tapes are, basically, especially what happened specifically over COVID too, was that everyone did their audition from home by themselves. So they would have a reader, which is what's still going on today. You do it yourself and then you send it in. In that case, I was able to do it however many times I wanted, play with it a bunch of different ways. I had the freedom to try it this way and try it that way. And then you can look back and see which one works. Or I would send them to my agent and we would talk about it. Which one should we send? Do we send both of them? You have much more control
Right.
over your performance. And I really like that. Plus, you can do it at any time, which is so helpful now with James, because it's like, I don't know how mothers did the auditioning thing pre-COVID. I mean, I
Super
give them
human.
so much credit because the stress alone of like having to be somewhere at 2 and then they're running late and now it's 3:30 and you brought your baby and now they need to eat.
Yeah, that's a lot.
But it's a mental game. And I mean, coming from an athletic background, like I think about basketball players, throwing free throws. That's what they're called, right?
Yes.
Free
That is
throws.
yes, free throws, I think. Yes.
Where the entire audience is watching, is watching you and everybody is watching you and it's you, like, and I always say to my husband, I was like, I would choke. I would be like, nope. And it's a mental game to shut out everything else and focus on the skill that you have and the confidence that you're able to do it.
It really is an interesting kind of parallel there where, especially as an athlete, there were times that I kind of had to dissociate from my actual personality because you know me, I'm like very nice. And like, there were still elements where like I was way too nice in basketball, but like there are certain points where you have to like go and kind of ram into
Yeah.
somebody and do and
get aggressive.
And Dennis would trash talk a whole lot, and we can talk about that. You know what I mean? Where it's like he's the nicest person, but you have to kind of dissociate from who you are to be able to be the best at the game.
Yeah.
Similar to acting, it's like you have to become a completely different person, and there's kind of a weird switch that probably has to happen.
Totally.
Where, especially in the few acting things that I've done, like it's a scary, intimidating thing to be completely vulnerable.
Yeah.
And let yourself go and look silly and
Yeah.
get mad when it's just like a random room of people and like all these different things.
Totally.
It's just it's a strange concept.
It really is. And I'm still constantly trying to, you know, chip away at that. And in auditions, I've been able to, you know, let go and feel a little more free. But I find that directors are really helpful with once you're actually on set and doing the job, with like giving you the confidence and the support to be as vulnerable as you need to be, especially when it's an emotional scene. Right. And they I find, you know, great ones like really do a great job at setting the whole vibe up.
For sure.
You know, for lack of a better word,
Yeah.
like to allow yourself to drop in there. And it's always a work in progress for me to like allow myself to drop like deeper and deeper and deeper, just to and not care that there are, you know, 80 people standing around, someone's like finishing their lunch and someone's like on their phone on an Apple box. Like it's just a weird mental like gymnastics kind of to stay focused.
Yeah, and be able to lock in like that.
Yeah.
You've mentioned to me before an exercise that you do to help kind of boost your confidence, something with a circle.
Yes. Oh gosh, yes. The circle of...
Or what was... Yeah.
Yes. It's called something. Someone out there will know what I'm talking about. The circle of something. But basically, and I learned this in our acting class when I was in university, where you would like create an imaginary circle, and a couple minutes before you needed to do something or perform or go into an audition or whatever, you'd create the circle and you'd stand in the circle and you'd open your legs and open your arms, and you would just kind of stand there like this and take deep breaths and let your open chest open. Like it's such a vulnerable pose because you're always wanting to kind of curl up and like protect your chest, protect your heart. Like
it's just a natural human thing.
It's a natural human thing. And to stand there open like this, and you'd stand there for 2 minutes and just take deep breaths and like feel, I think it was called Circle of Power maybe. And like feel the power of you in your body in this circle, and the confidence that you have as like a warrior in the circle, and then to enter into whatever you're doing, whether it's a meeting, whether it's job interview, like, you know, it's even if you need to do it at home or do it in the bathroom. I did it in the bathroom at an audition one time, or when no one was in the waiting room, I just did it in the waiting room. Like, and at that point, it's like, who cares? So I'm standing like this and somebody else is here.
It doesn't matter because you're feeling the power.
You've got to do what you've got to do what you've got to do.
Yes. That's super cool, and something that can be translated across any industry.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Oh, totally. Like I'm so conscious of what people think sometimes to a fault. And I've really, and I found that motherhood has kind of changed that for me in not serving other people first, and really putting myself first and not being apologetic about it.
That's really important. And it's hard when I feel like sometimes we're conditioned to, yes, it's good to think about other people and be kind and considerate and empathetic and all the things.
Yeah.
But if we aren't, you know, flying on a plane and putting on our own mask, well, then we're going to pass out when we run out of oxygen before we can help everyone else.
Yeah.
So we have to be at our best to be able to help other people better. And I'm sure motherhood is a huge way to experience that.
Yeah. Yeah. It was really interesting going back to work after, like, the first time going back to work and seeing how things shift and what starts to not matter and what starts to matter that didn't matter before, and the time that you need and the space that you need, and, you know, the energy that you don't need, and being able to say, like, no, thank you. Or if you need to just sit in silence and learn my lines, which I was like, it was like all I could do was just take a moment here and there in between, you know, scenes with Surreal Estate, and like go over lines, because when I went home, I was just with my son the whole time. I was like, how do people do both? And I felt the need sometimes when there were guest stars, you know, we had great guest stars come in and sit in the room with us. And I felt obligated sometimes to sit and talk to them, and I wanted to and get to know them, and I didn't want them to think I was rude, but I also I needed to learn my lines.
Right.
And
I feel like tools for that you go to typically, or just
like
cram sesh.
Oh my God. Yeah. Just over and over and over and over. And then I have to sleep on it. It's like I have to do it one day or 2 days before. I am not good at just like picking it up and going. I need it in my brain so that if my mouth opens and words just fall out.
Yeah.
Without me thinking about it.
Interesting. So when you're reading a page, are you memorizing your lines and also understanding what the other person is saying?
Yes. So I did an acting class years ago, which I think she's still around. Her name was Margie Haber.
Okay.
And it was a really cool program, and like the way that she approached, and I never had her, but I did have, you know, teachers that were teaching kind of her method, and she would basically have you cover up your lines. And I've never memorized anything faster in my life than when I was taking her classes, because they would give us an exercise of like 3 pages. We would have 20 minutes to do it and sit in silence. She had a way where you wouldn't say it out loud first. So the first time you said it out loud was like to somebody and fresh. I don't know how, like, I don't know if I continue taking that with me. I don't know if that worked for me so well, but I thought the idea of it was really cool. And I was able to learn my lines so quickly there, because you would like look it over twice or something, the entire scene, instead of starting like at the beginning and working, and you'd get an idea of what it is. And then you would cover up your lines and only look at what their lines are. And then you'd think like, what is my response to that?
Cool.
And most of the time it would be very similar to what the line, your line actually is. And then you'd, you know, move down and cover up your next line and see their response. So your brain was starting to really think like, what do I think about what this person is saying? And so your thoughts are there without you memorizing.
Yeah. I feel like that is a cool, I don't know, exercise to do, because it forces you to become immersed in the actual conversation versus being like, this is what the line is for what I'm supposed to say, and turning it into, this is how this character feels and this is how I feel in response to what they're saying. Yeah. Because that, in a few of the like classes and things, it's hard to like get yourself immersed, and even thinking about the body language. And when Graham helped me with a few things, thinking about the like quote unquote business, like, am I fidgeting with papers? Am I like, you know, to make that all seem seamless. I know. It looks easy when you're watching it on TV, and then all of a sudden you get in a room and you have to think, okay, what is the actual line that I'm supposed to say? This isn't an improv class. This is a scripted scene. What am I doing with my hands? Right? And how do I make this feel authentic?
I know.
It's so hard.
It's so hard. Any business that you see, I've found like business is hard, especially because there has to be some continuity. So like generally if you're doing something and you touch your hair and you put it over here, you have to do that on that line every single time. And
Yeah.
it's like, most of the time it's not just that. And then it's that, that's what made Schitt's Creek sometimes hard, because I was constantly doing stuff. Like I was,
Or like clearing the table.
clearing the
or
tables or
clearing
clearing
menus.
things. I'm putting the napkins in and stuff. And you're like, when was I doing that? And then I had to do it quietly because of the sound and the thing. Like the business aspect of it can be really tricky, which is why I need to know my lines like inside and out, because otherwise I panic.
And when you're in the actual like set, does that become easier? Because thinking about like audition, maybe they provide tools for you to do those things, but like I would imagine it feels a little bit more comfortable when there's actually a napkin holder and you can put napkins inside versus you're pretending.
Totally. Or like using your, script to like pretend it's a something or whatever it is. Yeah. It's always like, that's the other thing about auditions. You're like, okay, I'm auditioning for a 4-page action scene.
Yeah.
Okay,
better
we'll
stretch
try and
out,
make
get
this
warmed up.
How are you? It's like, do you know what I mean? And then they expect something to be done.
Of course.
So you're like, okay, I'll just. It's such a bizarre, job and like way of getting a job.
But it's cool. Like going back to what you said at the beginning, you're playing make-believe professionally.
Yeah.
And that's, if you're able to get to that vulnerable place and be willing to play in that sense, I feel like you'll be so much more successful. I think it's, from my perspective, it's like the people who are trying to be too rigid and perfect in it probably aren't going to find as much success. Or how do you experience it?
Yeah, no, I think that's true. It's you really have to, which I tend as a Virgo have a difficult time doing, is just like letting things go and letting things change and letting things move around and stay a little fluid. And I think it's why I like being directed a lot. Like a lot of actors like, let me try this. Let me try this. And that works sometimes. But if a director comes to me, I mean, if the note isn't great, then that's a whole other thing. If you're like,
For sure.
I don't see it that way.
Yeah.
But if you do, and it's something you haven't thought about, it's like, oh, yes. Let me try it that way. I wouldn't have thought about it like that. Like that's you just
so
kind of,
cool.
you have to stay flexible.
Yeah. And yeah, flexible and like coachable in a sense. 'Cause
Totally.
even Graham was helping me read through something one time, and he was like, try it like you're asking them a question this time. Okay, now try it like
Yeah.
and he was giving just different thoughts for like different ways to think about it, and it totally changed the delivery of the line. And that was so helpful to just go through it and think through it differently, because when you're looking at a script, it's not like there's a ton of other information typically.
Totally.
You have to interpret it.
Totally. You have, and that's what makes, great actors is it's that thought process of like, what's really going on in their mind. Although I think about this Meryl Streep, I think it's this famous story. It might be a myth, but it was what I had heard in Sophie's Choice. There's a moment at the, towards the end where she's like watching there's no point in, spoiling movie or whatever, but she's
That's
like
fine. Spoiler alert for Sophie's Choice.
like the train go away with her child on it, I think. And she's like, there's this blank look on her face, and rumor has it, someone had asked her like, what were you thinking in that moment? Because there's just like vacancy. And she was like, I was going through a grocery list, because it allowed the vacancy. Like sometimes when you're too on the nose, it's like it doesn't read as well maybe. So it was like she just needed to think of something that was completely
different,
disassociated from, like, to get that reaction.
That's wild.
You know what I mean?
But it's true. I feel like so much great acting is subtle but impactful.
Yeah, totally.
And there's got to be tricks like that happen along the way, or it'd be so cool to be a fly on the wall and like learn about all of those different things, which we're doing right now.
I know. I need a Meryl Streep masterclass. I need her to do a masterclass.
I would be down for that. That would be
Like,
amazing.
I need to know all the secrets.
I've watched the Samuel L. Jackson one.
Oh, really?
Yeah, that one's cool.
Was it? Okay,
Yeah.
good.
I love Masterclass. It's really
Same.
cool.
I watched
It's
the
really
Dustin
interesting.
Hoffman one,
Oh, I need to watch
which
that one.
Graham was in.
Stop.
And I didn't know he was in. Graham's my husband, and
he's awesome.
He's an amazing actor, an amazing acting coach, but he's also on his way to becoming a lawyer. He's in law school right now.
He's gonna be so good.
He's gonna be so good. I mean, there's nothing better than like an actor turned lawyer, because like, talk about performance.
Oh my gosh.
But he was in a masterclass that I took before I knew him, and it was the Dustin Hoffman one, and I watched his scene. It was a scene from Good Will Hunting.
Oh my gosh.
And then we went on a date after completely. And I remember thinking when I was watching it, like, he's a really good actor. And then we met, and then we went on a date, and I was like, you were really good in that. And he was like, thanks. And then he kind of brings it up every once in a while. He's like, remember when you
because that
thought
is
I was good? I was like, because you were. I wouldn't say that otherwise.
no.
I wouldn't have brought it up.
He's so good.
He's so good.
Just yeah. I watch him and I'm just like in awe because
He's so good.
Yeah. I mean, you both are amazing.
He makes me so. Like, what luck did I get to marry an acting coach, like a built-in acting coach? Couldn't have gotten. It's almost as if I planned it.
Almost. I mean, it's just serendipitous.
It's totally serendipitous.
Oh my gosh. Okay.
Totally.
So for people who are interested in getting into acting or the industry in any capacity, what would you say are some of the skills that people need to focus on the most as an actor?
I think it's such a good question. I think the mental game needs to be strong. And I am constantly working on it, because you constantly, I mean, sure, you do have some people that breeze in and they like it, they work immediately because they just don't look like they care about anything ever. And people are drawn to that.
Yeah.
And most of the time you're doing a scene, or you're constantly picking apart, like, what does my hair look like? What does my face look like? What does my teeth look like? My hair shouldn't be like that. I didn't like what shirt that was. Like, you're just picking yourself apart at all times. And if you don't get the job, like, am I not this? Am I not that? Were they looking for this? Were they looking for, like, it's so hard to disassociate yourself from the job. So I'm constantly trying to, work on that mental game to like keep yourself in it too, because it doesn't feel good.
No.
And
there's got to be a lot of rejection. Even if you're an amazing actor, it's like roles are so specific.
oh my gosh, it's all rejection. It's
Yeah.
like you get one. I'm so used to rejection at this point that thankfully it doesn't phase me anymore.
Yeah.
But like, it's still rejection in any capacity. Like, always hurts.
Yeah. It's not fun.
Especially when you really want something. So to just like keep your eye on the ball in that sense and not worry about what it is you look like, I think ultimately, and luckily I think in this industry, we've moved away from like a very specific way that men and women have to look. And everyone is in this wave of like, be who you are, and
Right.
and you're the size you are, and you look the way you are, and your hair color's the way you are, and like, it's not trying to conform and fit into this little box that I think it really did used to be.
Right.
But it's I always like, when I do get asked this, like, I never really know what to say, because
Yeah.
it's so hit or miss. It's like, it's luck, it's right place at the right time, it's your preparation. And I think ultimately, I think it was Paul Schaefer, actually, who used to play the piano for David Letterman.
Yeah.
He used to talk about, yes, it's luck to a degree. You have to be in the right place at the right time. But when you are in that right place at the right time, you have to be prepared.
Right.
Because if you blow it, then it means nothing.
Right.
So work, and do all your due diligence and take your classes or take your coachings or whatever it is that make you feel confident as an actor. Know who, what. I think the biggest part for me was like learning how people perceive me and what they see versus who I think I am or who I know I am. Like
Right.
they're seeing something different. So lean into that. I find that sometimes easier, if that makes any sense.
Into how people are perceiving you.
Kind of like,
That is so interesting. In the very first acting class that I ever took, it was the tool shop
Yes,
one where
yes.
it's like all newbies, and
you like sit in a chair and
well, it was all on Zoom.
it was all
So it was all on Zoom. But essentially I would imagine
Yeah.
you would originally be sitting in the chair.
Yeah.
And everyone else in the group has to kind of like give initial just knee-jerk reactions to
of like who they think you
Yeah.
would be or
right. Exactly.
occupations or
Yes. And like, how do you view this person? Which it's such and literally all I said was my name. Like, hi, I'm Kelsey. And then everyone kind of goes through and says which being a Midwesterner, I'm like, we don't speak like that.
I know.
And it wasn't like anything was negative
No, but it's
necessarily, but
intense.
it's a really interesting exercise
Yeah.
to do. And I don't know the pros and cons psychologically of that, but like,
there are probably some cons.
but because it happened, like it's
Yeah.
an interesting thing to think about how
Yeah.
people initially perceive you and being able to be a little bit objective to that, to be like,
Yeah.
okay, here's how I am coming across. Do I like this or do I not like this?
That's the thing. And I think like, especially with the whole kind of, Schitt's Creek thing in my case and that character and people, I mean, that definitely kind of put me in a bit of a box in that sense that everyone kind of, no one, it felt like I wanted to be a lawyer, a detective, a thing. I wanted to do drama. I wanted to do all these things. And like no one, it felt like people couldn't see that in me, partially because of this character that I was playing. But what I was giving off was not what I was like, not even wanting to give off, but I was just being perceived as like, I would get a lot of parts that were like flighty, whatever, or, a lot of like Twyla-esque parts. Vulnerable, like a little bit emotionally unstable,
Yeah.
a little bit like unhinged.
So kind of like Ellie Kemper, how she was in The Office. She was aired in The
Totally.
Office, and then she got casted. And I'm blanking on the name of
on
the other show.
Kimmy Schmidt.
Yes, Kimmy Schmidt.
Totally.
Okay.
Very similar. And you know what? Great. Then go with it. Because
Yeah.
if that's what people are seeing and liking,
Totally. I love her in those roles.
then you go with it.
Yeah.
And I've had that conversation with myself back and forth a lot, which is why I was, also glad that something like Surreal Estate came along, because it's completely different.
Right.
And it allowed me to actually like do a lot of things that I wanted to do. But Graham says this too when he's coaching me. If it's a specific character, he's like, don't add anything because you already are. Your essence is who this person is. You don't need to add any extra to that, because now it's too much.
Interesting.
You can just be who you are, because who you are is believable as this person. And so often we're like, okay, we're going to be a lawyer. And then we're like putting something on it, or a cop. You're like putting something on it.
For sure.
And you don't need to.
That is a really cool distinction, because sometimes it does feel like, okay, I have to completely dissociate myself here and put on my cop boots
Totally.
and become this different person.
Totally.
But it's kind of like maybe infusing
Yeah.
who you are and
Yeah.
bringing in what the writers are wanting
Yeah.
from you.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah. And that was actually another thing that Catherine O'Hara said in terms of direction when we were having a conversation one day in between takes on Schitt's Creek. She was like, how I see direction, and you could, in any capacity, whether it's on set or whether in an audition, she was like, if somebody redirects you, I don't necessarily think you need to scrap everything you've done. Take what you've done and then just add their direction. So it's not just a completely different thing. You're just you're building on it versus like only doing one thing every,
That's so cool. She seems like a incredible person.
She
She's
is.
an
She
amazing
has.
actor.
Yeah. I mean, it's incredible watching her. She's but anybody that she's amazing. But like, anybody that has that type of experience in any job, you're just kind of like, okay, I want to soak up some knowledge.
I'm your sponge and want to emulate all of that.
Yeah.
Do you have any favorite Schitt's Creek moments?
Oh my God.
Probably too many.
Oh my gosh. So many. I mean, our last day is such an amazing moment. To the fact that we were all together, and what an emotional, wonderful day that was. The Jazzigal stuff is always like a good one for us, and for me specifically. Just getting to sing, and we would have these amazing harmonies, and we would rehearse like all those songs that we sang throughout the series were all done live. So like we were actually singing 4-part harmony on set in the take. Like none of it was all cool. Our voices.
Wow.
So it was like amazing. I remember we did it in our Christmas episode. We did Silent Night, and we did this 4-part harmony for it, and it was like such an incredible arrangement, and like that stuff, because I love to sing, so to be able to combine them. But I mean, amazing moments just all throughout, especially considering it kind of went from like nothing to this, explosion at the end, basically when we were completely wrapped the show. So it was like seeing it build momentum was also really, really amazing and cool to be a part of something that just like, picked up speed in such a weird way.
I mean, but so cool. It was just such a special show. And to be able to go back and watch it and have those incredible memories with such talented people.
Yeah.
It's just,
we had
so
the best
cool.
time. We had the best time. We really did.
Oh my gosh, Sarah, you're amazing. So is there anything else that you would like to share with us as we wrap up our time together?
I don't think so. What a lovely conversation. I feel like I especially ping-ponged all over the place. So apologies for my, I don't know, ADD.
No,
mind all over the place, but
it's so fun to hear like the little, sidebars and the stories and all the different things, because it's funny. Like when you're living your life, these are all normal things.
Yeah.
But as your friend, it's like fun to learn more. And because it is interesting, like making friends in your 30s, right?
Totally. Yeah. They're
like,
my favorite friends.
Yes. It's just like such a different experience.
Yeah.
And sometimes people are already like, no new friends. And
Yeah.
I'm like,
no, not me.
No, me neither.
Not me. No, because you just add. It infuses your life.
Yeah, and no one else is going to be that other best friend that you have from grade school or high school or whatever it is. It's like everyone can be wonderful, and we can just add on to it.
Totally.
Well, thank you so much.
Thank
Where can people
you.
find you? In
Oh
the
my
internet,
gosh.
on your shows?
You can find me at Sarah P. Levy on Instagram. Where else I'm not on TikTok, and I'm not really on Twitter.
Yeah.
But you can also, where else can you find me? On, I guess, our Instagram for Surreal Estate, which will, I guess, not promoting currently.
Yes.
But eventually there will be
Yes.
some promotion for it on, I don't know what the Instagram handle is. I think it's Surreal Estaters.
Great.
So we have a lot of fun stuff that's going to go up on that for our upcoming season. But that's
Great.
kind of it. Social media, I'm like not a big social media person.
You're a in-person person.
I'm an in-person person.
That's a great person to
Yeah.
be. Oh my
Yeah.
gosh. Well, thank you for coming.
Thank you for having me. This was so fun. I can't believe it. We did it.
We did it. We did it. There was a child that was created, a workout program that was created,
A lot of things born.
TV shows,
Yeah.
and there's more to come.
And there's more to come. So much happened in a year.
I love it.
It's wild.
All right, lady. Well, thank you so much. You're the
Thank
best.
you. We'll do this tomorrow.
Yes. Oh my gosh, you were the best ever. Thank you so much.